This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Good morning. My name is Shay Preek. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Jam, and I believe that there's a crisis of connection happening in the workplace and that no one is solving it. 82% of employees now say that personal connections are the most important thing for workplace culture. But the problem is that when employees become less connected, they become less engaged. And when they become less engaged, they become less productive. And that is really bad for a company's bottom line. So bad that the employee engagement industry itself has exploded to become a $75 billion industry to make this less bad for companies. Yet despite all that capital, there's been no substantial increase in employee engagement over the past 18 years. And so with Jam, we said, what if instead of technology that clearly isn't working, we just built an experience that helped employees get back to basics and connect face to face. And that's exactly what Jam does. So Jam is a tool that integrates into your company's calendar system and intelligently schedules face-to-face interactions between employees in a way that moves businesses forward. And so I'm here to tell you that beautiful things happen when you give employees not only the permission to get to know one another, but an excuse to be vulnerable. And the way that works is that Jam tells employees not only who they should connect with, but when they should connect with them and what they should talk about. And so 5 months ago, Jam was just an idea on paper. And so I'm really proud to say that in that time, not only have we built a functional product, we've partnered with 6 amazing companies ranging from an NHL organization to a media tech startup. And we're just getting started, and we just need a little bit of money to help us get there. So we're looking to raise an $80,000 pre-seed round, which we believe will help us get to $12,000 in MRR by Q2 of 2019. And I'm really excited to say that we actually just closed our first $30,000 of that round. So we're looking for introductions to investors that know the space. Again, my name is Shay Preek. I lead the efforts on growth and strategy for Jam, while my incredible co-founder, Willie McDade, leads the efforts on design and sales. And I'm looking forward to any questions that we may have. So thanks so much.
All right, John, take it away.
Thanks, Shay. Good to meet you. Hopefully this mic's working. You did a really good job. I mean, you could tell you practiced your 2-minute pitch. Everyone who's done it learns that it's actually harder than a 5-minute with slides. And you covered almost all the bases that we like to hear people try and cover in a 2-minute pitch. You talked about the problem that you're trying to solve. You talked about the industry that it fits within and the size of the industry. I think I got a pretty good feeling for what your product does, and you actually had an ask. I think if I was to, you actually had a little bit of time left, which is so the question is what more or what different thing. You also talked about traction, which is really hard to do as early as you are, and that's great, because one thing we've learned in years of doing this is that momentum is an incredibly important thing, and it's important for a lot of reasons, but especially if you're trying to raise money, being able to demonstrate some sense of momentum. And so the fact that you're working with 6 companies or organizations maybe is great. So the one thing that maybe didn't come out that with a little more time is tell us a little bit more about you and your co-founder and why you're the guys that we should believe can make this a world-dominating company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the part that I didn't cover is that my co-founder and I, Willie McDade, actually started what is now Jam during our senior years at Davidson College together. And it was we started around this idea or this frustration that Davidson on paper should be a very hyper-connected environment. There's 2,000 students, it's very selective, there's a filter that puts a lot of people in commonalities. And our frustration was, why don't more collision points happen between students on campus that would bring insight to the stories of these individuals that would then enhance my own experience as a student at Davidson, right? And our thesis was people operate kind of walking around with these barriers that stop those kind of conversations happening, right? Who should I connect with? When should I connect with them? And what do I even talk to this person about? And so we took that messaging and threw it out to the entire student body just to say the classic thing, we can't be the only people thinking this, and got about 20% of the student body to sign up To our message was, if this resonates with you in any way, give us some of this data, and we'll facilitate that entire experience. And so we started doing that, and what we saw was that these people that you walk to class with or you eat in the same cafeteria with, that we see on a day-to-day basis, we have no idea what their stories are, right? But if you give people an excuse to get to know one another, people are going to jump at that opportunity. And so it was great at Davidson, kind of went our separate ways, but then in the year and a half working within our companies, we saw this is a massive problem outside of the Davidson bubble, right? Think about the people that you show up and work alongside every single day, and you're operating with these same exact barriers that are stopping people from getting to know one another. But the perfect storm that is brewing right now is that the people joining companies today are the ones saying, I want to know these people, right? Otherwise, that's part of my experience at this company. And if that isn't met, then we as the popcorn generation are just going to go to another company, and that has serious implications for a company's bottom line. So.
Is this on? Should be on. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Sure.
Did I hear you pitch 2 years ago with President Quinlan up at Davidson?
I don't think so.
Was it 2, 3 years? It was many years ago?
I'll say
okay.
yes, but...
Okay. When did you graduate Davidson?
I graduated in 2016.
I did hear you pitch because you presented this idea because you were scraping, I think it was your co-founder or something. You were pulling across different, hey, there's the chess club over here, there's a sporting event. Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah. So it's interesting to see you mature the idea.
So that was just clearly a completely different idea.
No, but I know, but for me as an outsider, there's some common tenets, and I'm seeing you grow it into a commercial enterprise arena, right? Okay. So I would, the only comment I'd have on the pitch, and I'm not a big fan of 2-minute pitches, but for the purposes of today, we invest in leaders. So I mean, the math will tell you 6.5 years to an exit for a software startup on average, right? So there's some shorter or longer. It's the people who will lead it. And so what is your background with it? I'd maybe start with that and then your backgrounds, and then especially being younger and you're selling into enterprises. So who are the folks who are around you, advisors and others that are helping you pull yourself in? But in terms of the business, I think the two things I heard I'd love to ask more questions on. One would be is that did you state that the platform, either in its future state or initial designs, will tell you who you should meet with and when and why?
Exactly.
So how are you building that engine?
Yeah, so the way it works is that employees opt in by submitting a one-time form where they tell us a few personal interests that they'd like to connect around, skills in the company they'd like to learn, or specific departments they would like more insight to. Once that's submitted, our algorithm engine runs in the background, and then the entire interface happens within a company's calendar system. So since we live in the company's calendar system, employees inherently already know how to use the platform, and they're going to receive a 30-minute invitation for a jam session with the other employees that they've been connected around, with insight to why they've been connected around personal interests or skill set. And then once that's finalized, all they have to do is amend or accept it, just like any other calendar invite. Before their jam session, they're going to receive a set of questions and activities that help them kind of facilitate that conversation.
As employees are using your platform, are you capturing their behaviors as they use it, or
so
do they have to opt into that? I mean, there's some privacy components there.
We don't record the conversations that happen.
No. But like, you present them with 3 options, and they spend 60 seconds on the first one. 10. I mean, are you capturing that to feed the
exactly? So after an hour and a half after your scheduled jam session, you receive a feedback form that you have to fill out to get another jam session. And in that feedback form, we're collecting the quality of the conversation on a scale of 1 to 10. How connected do they feel to the people they worked with? Do they ask any of the questions that we recommended? Would they go on a future jam session with that person again? And not only does that help us then recommend better jam sessions, but then the part that I didn't even touch on is we take data from all those jam sessions and package in a report for the head of HR, the head of people ops, that they can make future decisions on who should connect in the company and these new lines of communication that are kind of emerging within the company.
And then you said you had 6, I guess, pilot or discussionary customers at the commercial level?
Yeah, they're paying customers that range from, it's kind of early stage. We'll talk to anyone who's interested in us, and that ranges from, again, an NHL organization, which we didn't think would be one of the first customers behind this, to a media tech startup, to a video agency. But where we're kind of going is, trying to figure out how we can speak to some of the companies higher upstream now that we have a little bit of stability, right? And the trade-off with that is obviously longer sales cycles, longer implementation cycles, but comes with a way bigger employee base, as well as bigger contract size.
Yeah, I was going to say those are all small companies. I mean, NHL teams are less than 100 people normally,
Exactly.
right? So, what's been some of their feedback? Why do they across those different industry sectors? What do they like? Is there a common pain point you think?
So it kind of ranges. We have a company of 35 people that have signed on to use it because they have remote employees and they have nothing else to connect remote employees. Our biggest company right now is a 350-person company, but they're slated to grow to 700 by the end of 2019. So they're using it for new employee onboarding, while the former company is using it for remote employees connection, right? And now we had a pitch with an actual enterprise client, so 4,000 people, and they want to use it for cross-departmental learning. So obviously these deep silos exist that employees have no idea what another aspect of the business is doing, but when it comes time to work on a project together, there's a huge learning curve right there that they have to catch up on. So quite honestly, there's several different use cases that, again, we'll partner with any company right now that we see the validity in that use case. It's more so just now on the contract size and where do we see the upsell opportunities for these bigger companies.
How are you pricing it today, or how do you think you'll be pricing it?
Candidly, I think we were doing a terrible job at pricing just because we're trying to figure out understanding the budget sizes for these different companies. So right now it's a 3-tier model. Any company under 50 employees can pay us $100 a month and they have unlimited access to the platform. The small to medium-sized enterprises are paying on average $2.67 a month per user per employee. And then the big enterprise clients right now, per employee use pricing doesn't work for big enterprises. So it's right now, the one proposal we sent out was priced at $4,100 a month for an entire department that they would roll out Jam to. So.
And is it a safe assumption on my part, hearing your answer to Brandon's question, that this next phase you're really going to be testing all those various use cases and hopefully finding kind of one or two that you're going to try and go deep on?
So I think the beauty of what we're doing is that the platform works the same way depending on the use case of how employees are using it, right? So I think what Jam, and this took us a while to realize it because when we first started, we were pushing very heavily, this has to be just around personal interest, right? Employees, true connection happens when you get people talking about what the things that they care about. But then the feedback that we got from the enterprise with clients were like, look, we don't really care about the personal interests. Like, we want some harder, tangible business value here, right? And that's where we started rolling out the cross-departmental learning, personal mentorship. One company even wants to use it to build an internal pipeline for future leadership within the company and figuring out who these people are and how do you have skip-level meetings between the C-suite and junior employees. But the technology is going to work the same exact way, from having employees opt in to the calendar integration piece to the data feedback. So I think where we're going from the technology route is building out the engineering that can automate all of what we're doing right now, so we can have a 2-tier approach to getting those smaller companies automated and up and running, but then delivering a customized approach to the big enterprise clients.
Well, yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I don't think it's going to be a technology question. It's going to be a marketing and sales and what are you question. I mean, being a platform technology is a blessing and a curse. And I think it's dangerous to be, because if you're an inch deep and a mile wide when you're starting out, I think you're going to find that it's hard to scale that from an advertising and marketing perspective in trying to explain to companies what you are. And so I think I would suggest that, as you experiment over this next year and you continue to be open about what people, you try and hone in on the ones where it's resonating the fastest, getting the greatest adoption and delivering the most tangible, return. And then that's where I would kind of point the gun, so to speak, from when you raise that next round and you start putting real money behind sales and marketing and those things.
Yeah, that's very feedback.
So the only suggestion, if you would like, is everything you've said speaks expense budget, P&L dollars that you're going to have to fight for, right? And we at our firm believe we're about to enter a market correction, recessionary. And so what will mid and for large-sized companies do with their P&L dollars? Well, HR departments, normally in IT departments, are some of the first to freeze, right? That's happening. Not you need to worry about that now, right? You got to drive your dream. But I just think the more narrow you could be, I think your survivability could be be greater. So use these learnings, apply to what you're doing, but learn. If you've mentioned things like performance management, learning and development, succession planning,
Onboarding.
leadership development, onboard. These are all HR sub-disciplines, right? Sub-disciplines that I would encourage you make sure, especially here in Charlotte. We've got some large companies at Bank of America and others who have large, fully built out HR departments who have 30-year career HR people, and they've kind of been there, done that. Meet them for coffees and stuff like that. Get there. Hey, how do you allocate your budget dollars? Is this a need? Is this a need? Because you may have a point need for this person and a 2-point needs every. You know what I'm saying? You could be spread pretty thin. Decision you could make is ignore the large enterprise, right? It's too complex. It's too much. And I'm just going to stick with the 100-person, 50-person companies where I can just go to the founder or the CEO and they're like, love it. Let's throw it in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can get more hits and more at bats and stuff like that. I think you're probably already thinking that way, but as you learn, especially with these first six companies, and then especially here in Charlotte, figure out ways to put yourselves in a position to learn even faster.
That's all they do that.
All right, with that.